arm triangle from mount goes by a lot of different names. Some people will call it the head and arm choke, some people will call it the side choke. It's part of a family of chokes called arm triangles, where we trap one of his arms in, choke him with one arm of ours and one shoulder of his. This is a terrific option when our opponent is either trying to defend his neck or when he tries to defend one of our arm locks and in so doing extends his arm, getting his elbows away from his body. If he doesn't do either of those things, we can force it, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. So if Ilias is on his back and I'm in the mount, there are many types of mount control. We can have high posture or low posture. A really powerful mount control for both grappling and MMA is when I have head control. So if I have head control, if I have my arm under his head, I'm going to be doing two things. I'm going to give him a little shoulder pressure, which means I pull him off to one side, drop my shoulder a little bit, and I want my arm out to one side. That way, if he tries to roll me the other way, it's going to be difficult. If I'm just right here and I trap my own, yes, exactly. So you don't want to trap your own arm. Let's go back. Human body is a table, right? We have 4 posts. And so if I give up one of my posts to attack, I have to make sure I minimize his risk of attack, which means I make him look this way and I put my weight this way. So if he tries to roll me, it's really hard. So that's the first thing we want to do, is we want to maintain the mount. The second is we want to separate his elbow from his body. Now sometimes he'll do this for us, right? Like sometimes he will try to push up on me, right? We separate. Sometimes I'll try to get him in an Americana and he'll extend his arm straight. And we can extend his elbow away from his body. Today what we're going to do is we're going to assume, let's scoot back just a little bit. We're going to assume he doesn't make any big mistakes, but we force him to move his elbow away from his body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand on the mat, like Thing from the Addams Family or a spider, and I'm going to walk it up with this part of my elbow, the elbow pit, inside the point of his elbow. So I have my shoulder pressure, I have my weight out to one side. I'm going to angle us off this way so they can see. I just put my hand on the mat and start walking. You see how it flares Ilias's elbow. This also starts to torque his shoulder. So a lot of times he's going to bring his arm straight just to like stop. Now I put my head on the mat. As I put my head on the mat, I use it like a scoop, right? So now if Ilias tries to get his arm back, it's going to be really, really difficult. So you can finish this choke from the mount. And I've seen it done, but it's more powerful if we get off to one side, hence the term side choke. I'm going to show 2 different ways to finish it, one of which I prefer. I'm going to put my far knee on the mat and windshield wiper my leg so that my leg hooks on his hip. And I'm going to put my knee down by his hip to block his hip. Now to finish, this hand is going to come palm down and connect palm to palm with no thumbs. And I'm just going to sprawl my hips down while I drop my left shoulder, finishing the choke. So we're going to go over some details here, because this is going to be a bit of a slower choke sometimes. And at the end, we may show a one-armed variation to finish. So the mechanic for what's working is this bicep is cutting off this carotid artery, and his own shoulder, when I walk it up, is cutting off this carotid artery. So it's really important that we keep this bicep loose, because if it's loose, then it's going to contour to his neck, so that when we finally flex it at the very end, it's going to pinch off his carotid artery. It's also really important that we walk his elbow up, because if we don't walk his elbow up, his shoulder never gets to his neck, and if his shoulder never gets to this part of his neck, we're not cutting off that other carotid artery. So we're going to do that again with the setup, the entry, and the finish. I'm going to spend a little more time on the finish explaining the details. Head and arm control. Pull him off to one side, shoulder pressure. Walk, 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 walk. If his hand gets caught in there like that, that's going to be really uncomfortable for him, and he might tap to the joint lock anyway, so a lot of times he's just going to extract that for himself like that. Knees on the mat. I windshield wiper. I don't just try to step over because I can get caught. So my knee's in the mat and I just windshield wiper so that this leg makes a hook by his near side hip. I'm always blocking his hip, which is why I want my knee to come to the mat first. So 3 things are going to happen. Remember, I'm not flexing my bicep right now because I want it to be really tight next to his neck. I go palm to palm. Now, little adjustment that's going to help. See how my right forearm is away from Ilias? I'm I'm gonna pull him on top of that forearm. That takes away a lot of space. Now I'm gonna, and he might cap before I get to the details, and that's fine. Now all I'm gonna do is sprawl my hips down, put my head on the mat, take a deep breath, and just gently start to flex my bicep. And it's the gentlest little flex at the end. That's why you don't flex till the very end. The last thing about this choke is this choke can take time because it's a subtle choke. That's why you don't want to be squeezing it first. Because if you squeeze with all your might, for one thing, you're going to mess up your buddy's neck and you're not going to have any training partners. But more importantly, but in a tournament or a competitive round, if you give him one good squeeze for like 3 seconds and the choke doesn't finish, now he knows he's taking your best squeeze and you're not going to finish. So what you want to do is not squeeze it all at first, finish all the details, ratchet, sprawl the hips down, and just gently start to squeeze 10% at a time. And that's what's going to make it finish. I'm going to show that one more time. Hand under. And remember, a lot of times, guys are just going to give you this choke because they try to like shove you off of them or things like that. If he tries to shove me with this hand, we can just shove it. Or if he makes a frame on my neck, we can just grab it like that. If he's doing a good job of keeping his elbow tight, that's when we do the thing walk. So, head on the mat, knee on the mat, windshield wiper. I'm always blocking this hip because I don't want him to recover my leg or catch my leg and recover half guard. Still not flexing, right? Palm to palm, pull him onto my forearm. Start to sprawl my hips down, very gently, just now flex my bicep. I never got more than like 5 or 10% in the squeeze at the end. And that's why we drill these moves so detailed, because things go wrong in real rounds, right? You don't get it as tight as you want. Maybe you get a 60% grip on one side and a 70% grip on the other. But everything you don't do on the front end with technique, you have to make up on the back end with force. So when we're drilling, we want to make sure that we're able to finish without using force, so that when the time is right, we don't need force to finish the choke.